It wasn't perfect, but that race is exactly what these Chicago fans deserved, considering all they had to put up with this weekend. That kind of racing would make anyone a NASCAR fan. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove post-Chicago. I'm still here in Chicago, actually, just a few miles from the city. Still staying with some extended family, hence the unorthodox backdrop and chair. This is not my typical swivel chair. Before we attempt to digest what just took place on the streets of Chicago, we have to thank tonight's sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Sucker Punch and their Pickle Pouch Snack Packs. Your favorite pickles in a snack pack with knockout flavor. The fiery hot 3-pepper pickle chips, finished with a strong snap and an even more powerful kick. The snappy classic dill pickle chips are an ideal snack or the perfect addition to any sandwich, sub, or burger. And then of course there's the snappy sweet bread and butter pickle chips. A little sweet, a little savory, with a flavor that'll knock you out. Head to suckerpunchgourmet.com. I'll put the link down in the description below to check out all their delicious products and to try out one of their pickle pouch snack packs for yourself. Let me know which flavor is your favorite. I honestly have no idea where to even begin with this. I could start at the beginning. The moment the Chicago street race was first announced, when it was first introduced and added to the 2023 schedule, immediately this event became very polarizing, and for good reason. The NASCAR Cup Series had never raced on a street circuit. Now suddenly they were expected to race in the heart of downtown Chicago on 4th of July weekend, when Road America, sitting right up there in Wisconsin, put on a good show, great crowds the last 2 years. Daytona, memories of the Firecracker 400 still exist. NASCAR is supposed to go to Chicago? Did the city even want them there this weekend, considering the old mayor is the one who signed the deal? I could focus on how polarizing this event was coming in, and maybe I'll get to that in a few moments. I'm not sure how organized this video is really going to be. I could start with last night and this morning and how my mood this weekend has been up and down, peaks and valleys. I mean, I posted that video this morning. I was in a very bad mood earlier today. Last night, the Xfinity race got postponed due to nothing. No rain, no lightning, just Chicago policy says you gotta evacuate state parks whenever there's any potential threat of lightning or heavy storms. So the race got called way earlier than it should have been. They could have finished the Xfinity race last night. The Chainsmokers could have performed last night and fans wouldn't have had to go home disappointed. This morning with the rain, basically a hurricane formed over Chicago and Lake Michigan and dumped literally a month's worth of rain on the city in an afternoon. From what I was reading, Chicago had actually been experiencing a drought in recent weeks and months. It figures. NASCAR comes to town and the frickin' monsoon hits. I was so dejected earlier today. I could focus on that. Xfinity race getting called before halfway. Unprecedented. I get why NASCAR made the decision. That doesn't mean I have to like it. I was down in the dumps earlier today, but I'm not going to focus on that. I'm not going to start with that. Instead, I want to start with the race itself. I'll talk more about the event, my thoughts going forward, the future of street racing and NASCAR. I'll save that more for the end of this video, but I guess I want to start with the race itself. When I got the tweet, or I was on Twitter refreshing constantly throughout the afternoon, somehow Twitter was still working for me. I'm pretty sure I read past my 600 tweet limit. Anyways, as soon as I got the notification that drivers were being called to their cars, I was 12, 15 blocks away getting a drink at the Starbucks roastery downtown. I was with my girlfriend. It was her idea. Although I'll be honest, I went along with it. It was tasty. I got this milkshake thing. I'm not really a huge coffee drinker, but this was pretty. Anyway, tangent. We were in line to get some drinks. I get the tweet that says, hey, they're going green in 20, 30 minutes. We booked it. Coffee in hand. Fans were storming the gates. It was packed. It was dense. It was crowded. The entire city of Chicago, it felt like, was converging on Grant Park at the same time. Took us a while to get to our seats. I probably missed the first 15 laps. I was watching a lot of it on my phone, the broadcast, but I missed about the first 10, 15 laps probably. But once I got to my seat overlooking Michigan Avenue, mainly turn 11, let's just say I was glued to my seat basically the rest of the day, the rest of the race. This race, the show these drivers and teams put on today far exceeded my expectations. I didn't expect much passing, and sure, it was tough. It was not easy to make moves or come through the field, but there was way more passing, way more exciting moves being made, contact, bumping and run, beating and banging. There was way more excitement than I expected, and it never devolved into, you know, a show. You know what I'm trying to say? A clown show. Let me use the PG version. Yes, there was that one wreck where, was it LaJoy and Harvick spun out in turn? Actually, they're in turn 11. Byron was involved as well, where the track was blocked and everyone kind of had to like, whoop, hit the brakes to avoid piling in. But hey, when the moment we saw how this track was going to be laid out with concrete barriers on either side, we knew that was going to happen once. We knew it was going to happen once, so I'll allow it. Honestly, that was fun. It didn't hurt the race in my eyes. But we had so many drivers slipping the rear tires, getting into the outside wall, careening into the tire barriers. I'm looking at you, Noah Gragson and Martin Truex Jr. What were y'all doing today? The number of times I saw that bacon car in the turn 6 barriers, I lost count. I literally don't think I could count them on my hand. Truex, get that 19 car off the track at the end of this race. He was a walking caution. Anyway, sorry, I'll get to the drivers in just a moment. But what was I trying to say? Yes, this race far exceeded my expectations. Now, there are a few caveats to that. We have to keep in mind that the race began under wet conditions. Rain tires were being used. The track was very damp. Now, pretty quickly, the main groove dried out and they put slick tires on. They put the normal tires back on. But still, I mean, you could see it wasn't in the racing groove, but there was still standing water on the track. I mean, at the end of the race. So I think those difficult track conditions certainly created more action on the racetrack. That's just my opinion. Maybe that's not fact, but I believe that was probably the case. Also, when NASCAR decided about midway through this race to shorten the distance due to sunlight running out, that flipped the strategy for some drivers, put some fast cars back there around 12th, 13th place, put some slower cars towards the front. That naturally created a lot more intrigue, a lot more action towards the front of the field. So there were a couple of very unique circumstances in this race that allowed this to be one of the most action-packed road course races I've ever seen. To pretend that every Chicago street race would look like that, or every street course, or sure, every road course race. We've seen plenty of next-gen road course races, and they rarely look like that. So to pretend that this race was necessarily the norm, or that we're guaranteed great Chicago street races in the future, that would be disingenuous. I don't think that's necessarily true. Very special conditions out there tonight. Let me just leave it at that. But still, thought the racing was fantastic. Congratulations to Shane Van Gisbergen. Let's get to him. SVG, the New Zealand driver known for his success in Australian V8 supercars, making his first ever NASCAR Cup Series start. Never run a NASCAR Cup Series race before. I know he's big on iRacing. I've hosted some iRacing events on this YouTube channel that SVG has competed and done very well in, but he's never driven a real NASCAR Cup Series car until this event, and he wins it. And he wins it in dramatic fashion. He wins it convincingly. Had to work his way past Chase Elliott in the closing laps. Justin Haley, the race leader, who put up a valiant effort. When Haley was able to cross him back over and race him hard, he sent it. Respect to Justin Haley. We'll talk more about him in a minute, but he put up a fight. SVG had to overcome Elliott, Haley, the entire hungry NASCAR Cup Series field, which I've said has gotten a lot better at road racing in recent years. He's 1 for 1, batting 1,000. I've seen mixed reports. I don't know the official stat. Is he the first Cup Series driver ever to win in his first start? Minus the first ever NASCAR Cup Series race? Or is the stat he's the first one to do it in like 60 years? I saw one stat that said somebody did it like 60 something years ago. So I'm not sure. Either way, historic for a driver to come overseas, make his first NASCAR start and win on such a huge stage with so many new eyes watching. Congratulations to Shane Van Gisbergen. I really don't have much else to say. Congratulations to Trackhouse as well. What Justin Marks and Trackhouse are doing for NASCAR these days to help push stock car racing forward is incredible. Deserves a ton of praise. Project 91, genius idea. It's great to see it pay off for them. It's great to see that team have some success with this 91 car. This wasn't a fluky win by SVG by any means. I think he was one of the 3 or 4 fastest cars out there today. I mean, he was one of the top 2 fastest in practice yesterday. He and Jensen Button, the 2 non-NASCAR guys, coming over and set the tone pretty early yesterday. I think it's safe to say the Cup Series regulars, for the most part, caught up, but by the end of this thing, they couldn't catch Shane Van Gisbergen. I thought Early on, I thought Tyler Reddick was maybe the best driver. He was able to beat Denny Hamlin on the initial start. And then later on, Christopher Bell drove up and passed Reddick, and he led for a while, actually won stage 1 and won stage 2. Towards the end of stage 2, Larson was gaining on him, and even in stage 3, we saw Larson pass a lot of cars after being put a little further behind. I think Larson was also one of the fastest drivers, but in the case of Bell, got kind of screwed by the mid-race decision to end early due to darkness, and Reddick, I think, and actually Larson, I think all three of them might have been hosed by that same call. Bell and Reddick both ended up making mistakes at some point or another that further took them out of contention. Larson didn't, and drove his way to a top 5. Actually, let's look at the top finishers while I'm talking about it. To finish my point, maybe Shane Van Gisbergen wasn't the fastest driver in race pace tonight, but he was one of the fastest, certainly top 4, deserving winner. Congratulations to him. He was asked about potentially running full-time NASCAR, and SVG left the door open. Maybe not next year, but the year after or soon after that, we could see Shane Van Gisbergen come to the NASCAR Cup Series full-time. And with what we saw out there tonight, the field should take notice. Justin Haley, I want to give him a shout out real quick. Yes, he got bailed out by the decision to end the race early, which, let me touch on that for just a moment. NASCAR's hands were tied. I think they should have made the decision earlier, if at all possible. I think we could pretty clearly see at the end of stage 1 that things weren't going great. I'm not sure that would have helped guys like Christopher Bell or Kyle Larson when it's all said and done. I don't remember when they made their final pit stops, or first pit stops, I guess I should say. So I'm not sure if that would have helped them, but I do think it's very unprofessional at the very least to literally change such a major rule midway through an event. I mean, it's a huge call. Completely changed the complexion of this race the moment NASCAR made that decision. But again, I think their hands were kind of tied. There was no way this race was going 100 laps up against darkness the way it was. So at the same time, while I don't love NASCAR making the decision the way they did, even though they had to, I look at Bell's day, which he and Adam Stevens will say their day was ruined by this call, and I think they have a case, but at the same time, everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's looking at how long the race is taking. Everyone knows when sunset is, and you kind of have to factor that in when you're planning your early race strategy. Hey, what are the odds this thing goes the distance? Are they going to call it at lap 75, 80? I'm sure every crew chief was at least considering that, and if they weren't, that's on the crew chief. If you weren't at least considering the possibility of this race being cut short, that's on you. That's not on NASCAR. I mean, they did what they had to do considering the conditions they were dealt. Anyway, I definitely felt bad for Bell. I felt bad for Larson, even though he recovered to finish top 5. I felt bad for the other handful of drivers who were really fast, who got kind of hosed. It's tough. This was a very unique situation. I don't think this will come up very often, but it certainly played a major role in the outcome of this race, and I don't blame some drivers for being a little frustrated with how things went. But back to Justin Haley. He was certainly a beneficiary of NASCAR's decision to end the race when they did. Why do I keep saying decision like that? I'm like, I have a list. Decision. It's midnight, y'all. Cut me some slack. But Justin Haley finishes second. Yes, he was gifted that track position, you may say, but he had to keep it. He had to earn it. I overheard a guy in a Justin Haley hat, actually, as I was walking out of the venue, say that this was the most exciting 45 minutes of his life when Justin Haley was leading and was looking pretty good. Held off Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon made a mistake and wrecked trying to catch Justin Haley. Chase Elliott, and I know Elliott struggled this weekend and was in a backup car, but the road course king couldn't do anything with Justin Haley. It took SVG, a supercar guy who's used to racing this style of track. I think he even had slightly fresher tires than Haley did towards the end there. It took that. It took Superman to beat Justin Haley. This was easily his best road course performance. I think coming in, he had 1 top 5 ever. I think it was last year or the year before at the Charlotte Roval. So, I mean, congratulations to Justin Haley. I know where he's at in points. A win is likely what he needs to make the playoffs, but this still, a top 2, a second place run goes a long way for that team. And keep in mind, I think he started this race either in last or nearly last. So, again, I know the strategy flip helped, but still, to come from that far back to almost win at a street course is virtually unheard of. So congrats to Justin Haley. Great run. Chase Elliott finished his third. Another great points day. He was helped, of course, by NASCAR's decision to cut the race short. But he held on to his track position, didn't make mistakes when guys like Reddick, Austin Dillon, Truex, those around him did. So good run for Chase Elliott, more valuable points to get closer to that cut line. Talked about Larson. I think he was one of the fastest cars and drivers tonight. Didn't really make any mistakes, just victim of circumstances, rallied still to finish fourth. Kyle Busch was one of the first drivers I think I saw off course. He was into the tire barriers early on, but these indestructible next-gen cars, he was still able to rally to finish fifth. Cindric, McDowell, some good road course racers get great finishes. Joey Logano is in there. I want to highlight some other notables. Ty Gibbs gets his first top 10 in a few months, it feels like, so congrats to the rookie. Jenson Button ends up 21st. I saw him sideways and spun out at one point. I don't know if it was his fault, if he just got loose or if he got run into from behind, but he was so fast during practice and qualifying yesterday. I thought maybe we'd see a little more of him, but he might have just gotten taken out of contention. Josh Bilicki, he's not seen here, but he finished 23rd in Live Fast Motorsports equipment. Really great road racer. Just wanted to give him a shout out because he did a lot with that car this weekend. Couple other notables. Alex Bowman finished last. He got cleaned out by Denny Hamlin right in front of us in turn 11. A lot of guys were locking up the front tires getting into that corner. I assume that's what Hamlin did, and just unfortunately, Alex Bowman was the innocent bystander. I doubt it was on purpose, but those two have a history, and I'm sure Bowman fans aren't going to let Hamlin off the hook for that one, nor should they. I mean, that really ruined Bowman's race. I mean, I know he had like an oil leak or some issue afterwards that may or may not have been related, but still, that wasn't great. I really thought Truex would be better. He finished 32nd. Toyotas were very fast in practice. Truex was among them. He was among the top 5 fastest cars in practice, looked great in qualifying. But he just made a lot of mistakes tonight. Maybe it was just wrong place, wrong time. I don't know. But Truex, uncharacteristically mistake prone, finishes 32nd. Those were your top finishers. I can't say much about the broadcast. NBC has now broadcast 2 races this year, but I was at both of those races, so I've only caught glimpses of the broadcast. I'll go back and watch this week, but I hope radio style came across well. You know, much has been made this weekend. I heard Ben Kennedy talk about it earlier in the week about how NASCAR is already talking to other cities about bringing a street circuit to their towns. I think it was Steve O'Donnell tonight after the race said that, hey, NASCAR can take this show literally anywhere. So should NASCAR continue to branch out? They have a 3-year deal plus a 2-year option with Chicago. We'll see. Good chance they return to Chicago this time next year, but we'll see. But beyond Chicago, should NASCAR continue to look elsewhere and run other street courses? Is one street course enough? Should they get rid of street racing entirely? Should they ride some of this, I was going to say momentum. I think the race tonight gave them some momentum. The overall event had its issues, but should they ride this momentum and take on other street courses, maybe here and abroad? Go back to what I said earlier about the quality of racing. This race was great. Lots more passing than I expected, some thrilling moments, pile-ups, battles for the lead going back and forth. Great stuff. But again, consider all the added variables. The wet/damp track conditions, NASCAR changing the race length midway through, completely messing with several key contenders' strategies. There were some very special circumstances around this race that I think helped make the action more exciting. I don't think every street race nor every road course race even will be quite as fun, let's just say, or intriguing, engaging to watch. So this race was great, and I do think even the Xfinity race yesterday, while it started a little slow and it was kind of processional, just before the lightning delay, they were getting more racy in the Xfinity race too under dry conditions. So I'm not going to say that they wouldn't have put on a great show under normal traditional conditions, but I don't think it would have been quite as thrilling as the show we got. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is let's pump the brakes. I was a supporter of the Chicago street race. I had my doubts like many others. I wasn't sure about leaving Road America. I wish this could have filled a different slot on the schedule. I liked Road America on 4th of July. But by and large, I was very much in support of a street race of some kind, and Chicago is what we got. I was happy about that. I was excited to see how it would go. That being said, 1 to 2. I'll go as high as 2 because, Montreal, I think there's a good chance, possibly, that track will be added to next year's schedule. And I think for sure NASCAR Cup Series has to go to Canada for sure. And that's technically a street race. So I'm going to say 2. If Chicago and Montreal are on the schedule next year, I'm a happy camper. But let's not go overboard. And I don't think NASCAR is seriously considering this, but let's not put 4 or 5 street courses on the schedule. One, that's so expensive, I'm not sure NASCAR is even outfitted right now to take that challenge on. But just from a quality of racing standpoint, look, I love bringing the product to the people, But what NASCAR does best still is ovals. Super speedway, intermediates, short tracks. Ovals are still NASCAR's bread and butter. They can do road racing, and sometimes road courses are great. We saw tonight, a street course can even be great. But ovals ultimately are what NASCAR was built on. It's still, I believe, what NASCAR does best. I do not want to flood the schedule with these, let's say, super non-traditional tracks. I love bringing the show to the people. That's why I hope Nashville Fairgrounds can get renovated, because there's a short oval in a city, a trending city, a growing city. I still want that kind of project to be the focus. But if NASCAR wants to add one more street race, and maybe, it's Chicago and Montreal next year, maybe the year after that it's, Chicago and somewhere in Europe. I don't know. I would love to see NASCAR toy with one abroad race per season, but we'll have to wait and see. Tonight's race was great, but let's not get greedy. Let's not have too much of a good thing. Lastly, before I go, I think let's just put this race on the groovy gauge. I am all over the place tonight. The race was fantastic. Again, I have been up, I have been down, the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. Again, a messy, borderline disastrous weekend for NASCAR in the city of Chicago was salvaged by a fantastic race tonight with an exciting, surprising, intriguing winner. This race gets a 95%. No, I'm not going to go quite that high. In honor of Project 91, we'll go with a 91% on the groovy gauge. One of the best races of the season. I don't know that I'm ready to say it's the best. Again, I watched in person. I could see a big screen, but I was mainly stuck there watching Turn 11. If I go back and watch this on TV and get a better, fuller perspective, maybe this will go up, maybe it'll go down slightly. But for now, from my perspective, the energy that I experienced in my section, the crowd enthusiasm, honestly, this was the most fun in-person crowd I think I've ever been a part of at a NASCAR event. Everyone was just loving it. They were waving at fans in the buildings. They were cheering for the sweeper every time it came through under caution. They were very much pumped to see SVG get the win. They were reacting to every little thing on the big screen. Even the replays, when they go back and show Truex wrecking for the 50th time, they'd still react. Oh, the energy was outstanding. So maybe that warps my perspective, but this was a great race. 91% from my perspective. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I talked a little bit this morning about the event itself. Because of the weather and the way this thing played out, I don't think I really have like a full traditional vlog that I can edit and upload this week, but I may do another video showing off more of the footage I gathered from the in-person experience, the crowd, the amenities, the schedule, everything. Definitely some things that Chicago and NASCAR can do better for next year if they come back, but by and large, if you take the weather, the unprecedented monsoon out of the equation, I think this event was great. I know the weather really ruined a lot of things yesterday and earlier today, and I still don't know how I feel about NASCAR calling the Xfinity race before halfway. I understand that whatever their agreement was with the city, they wanted to avoid racing tomorrow at all costs. I get that. They're not going to do it every time. I know this is a very unique situation, but man, that doesn't quite sit right with me. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. I guess I was just saying that, I'll probably talk more about the Chicago race in the next few days. I'll show you guys some additional footage and things, but for now, those are my initial reactions. Had a great time tonight. Again, salvaged an otherwise messy weekend. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave this video a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel and you love NASCAR, and thank you to my Patreon supporters for your very generous support each and every month. I'll be out of town still for a few more days, taking sort of a mini summer vacation, but I'll still be working on videos. I work on vacation. That's the way this works, but it's always fun to talk NASCAR with you guys. I will see you again very soon. Take care, y'all. See you in the next episode.